So before we start, traditionally, this was my role.
What are you doing there?
What?
Come here.
Yes.
Yeah, so I move jobs inside the company.
Yeah, sorry, still, you're over here.
The Debian relationship won't be. However, I convinced Steve Langusek to do everything, and he was kind of doing everything anyway. And then he bailed on me. So we could just go do the traditional. People throw out issues and we can talk about them, or.
Do we have the notes from the last?
Yeah, we can have an agenda. And then
the last year's.
Team is coming, or?
Let me see if I can find this.
I'll find them on IRC. You know what? I just saw them down there somewhere. You can find them.
What's the chance of that working? Not good.
They're all under the bus.
And there was actually something you brought up with your.
Yeah, why don't we grab the agenda from last time and go through it? Yeah, okay.
All that.
Here.
Yeah. I'll put my question to the end then.
We can do this, and then we can do stuff.
Or work items for that relationship. Wow.
As long as it's not my name.
And Persia is missing.
Yes, this is a good idea.
This
Oh,
looks
that was done.
What was done?
done.
The
done,
Debian
done. What's left?
Launchpad access thing.
But this seems very specific to particular
Can you
issues.
click on that bug and see?
Yeah, let's just have a look at that bug.
Yeah, it's a good time to check on if things are actually being.
George to talk to Lamont, postpone. Hey Lamont, how are you? Done.
So why is this done? Because we got a triaged bug.
I guess the action was it maybe to file the bug, to comment on the bug.
Yeah.
Okay, but this seems like a very specific issue, I guess.
This is one that comes up every time, though. So
I mean, want to be able to synchronize their packages, and we always say come to Debian Ubuntu and ask.
Well, you really shouldn't need an account. I mean, you're trusted to upload to the Debian archive. You're trusted to, therefore, upload to the Ubuntu archive.
But this needs Launchpad developers to do something.
Right, so, do we have any Launchpad developers in here?
I asked them to come.
here's one.
Hi, Launchpad developer.
I'm actually Launchpad manager. I don't have time much to work with Launchpad, but I can get others to.
More perfectly, you're a manager. You can tell other people to do this.
Good.
Good stuff, yeah.
Would it be totally feasible to do this? Because you could just create Launchpad accounts for these people.
They already have stub accounts.
Yeah, you can just populate sub accounts with the GPG
They
information
have
you're giving.
them. So can we allow these stub accounts to file new bugs, maybe?
No, we need to activate those accounts.
And the reason you don't want to activate them is because then we'd be sending them mail about things, right?
Well, if you can expect, so what's the problem exactly we're trying to solve is?
So you should be able to sync packages if you're a Debian developer, and you should be able to you should be able to respond to bugs.
Not sync packages, request syncs.
So request syncs.
Yeah.
Basically, you should be able to file bugs and modify bugs as a DD without creating an account in Launchpad. Because it's not Debian culture to have to create an account. Like, at least in BTS, nobody needs an account.
This again.
It should be as low friction as possible. So
Yeah, we don't want to add additional boundaries, because we don't want to add additional work they have to go through. Because I often had a DD say, like, I can't use Launchpad for some reason. It's like some silly reason, but because...
And you're using bugmail, and you want to be using email to do that.
Yes, so you do have an email gateway. You have, you can GPG sign a mail to a certain email address.
And we already
Have stub accounts.
they're not called stub accounts. They're called we have person records in Launchpad that don't have an account associated to it. What we could do is, I mean, and we already use GPG as the authentication mechanism for email in Launchpad. So what we could change, the bug should be, so that's a good description of it. And somebody can fix it, yeah.
Okay.
I'm saying non-committally because, I mean,
Because you have 260 critical bugs.
yeah, because there are a lot of things that we need to fix, but I mean the trick here is that if this is important for Ubuntu community, the Ubuntu community has a process to say, Launchpad, please fix that bug. And so if this is one of the most important things for the Ubuntu community, I invite you to use that mechanism to get us to fix that bug.
apply the widely sized button.
Sorry?
Never mind. Yeah.
So did you complete going over what was there?
No.
No, that's the first one.
That was the first item.
Okay.
I don't know how do we do this
We have
escalation.
3 and 3.
So you ask Bryce to do it for you.
Okay.
He's the one responsible for
put that
escalating
on
bugs on behalf of the
So
Ubuntu.
what give you this to?
Someone ask Bryce to escalate this bug. Maybe, please.
Sort that out later. So next item. Filter the LP builds that greps for common errors and they fail. Is anyone looking at these filters?
I guess.
Yeah, this was the one where
Things
Lamont
that-
ran something against the archive and it broke stuff.
I think basically there are times when builds will ostensibly pass. The package will be marked as built by depackaged, but the scanner.
Oh, so this is like the inter-pointer thing?
Definitely, I think there are some failures that we deliberately promote from warnings to errors. This is the main one is into pointer conversions on MD64, which will actually cause breakage at runtime. So that is quite deliberate. And we don't want to undo that. What we do want to do is fix them all and forward all the patches to Debian.
The point was don't break these things without telling upstream about it, I guess.
But that comes under we should just fix them all and
sure.
send all the patches up. There are a couple of hundred left, or there probably isn't even that much.
I think it's just people being annoyed by their packages being broken and then not knowing about it.
But their package is broken at runtime.
Yeah, the package is broken, right, but we know about it and we didn't tell them about it.
Right, so we should be telling them the solution isn't to undo the build
the
failures,
solution is
do
to tell
something
people
about the build
when
failure.
we find out things that are relevant to them.
Which should add build flags to Debian.
Yeah, wouldn't be useful there.
You should be added as build flags to Debian. W error on.
Possibly, maybe.
And locally, perhaps, so that you can actually reproduce it.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Can you not mask all those bugs against Debian and fix them back?
Yes. Well, we can.
Well, maybe
We can send patches. I don't think we should be mass filing those because we should be making sure that they all really are problems. But it has a pretty good interface.
So we could ask the AMD64 porters to mass file them and then, oh wait, we don't have an AMD64 porter.
There are a lot of complaints out of you today.
Next up, sync button. We've got those.
about my
So
Debian.
which kind of sync button is that?
Basically, we've got API access to do syncs from Debian to Ubuntu.
It's,
And
There you have a button
What's the
and a
status
script now.
We also have a button, but people mustn't use that.
yeah, please
Right.
don't use the actual web button, but
Yeah, but the sync package
It's
script is pretty much perfect.
Yeah.
I have one which is related to that, which has actually been mentioned by Barry on Debian derivatives recently. So you were mentioning making it easy to forward bugs after triage via Launchpad.
Yeah.
I have no idea whether it has ever been mentioned before or something like that. So essentially, you were saying essentially a web version of submit to Debian, right?
Yeah.
So not automatic as usual via triaging, but so I don't know.
Yeah, a button that you can push that would do that submission for you.
Okay. Is it something feasible? Is something think it's a bad idea?
would BTS be able to respond, like, we want to have happen, we don't want the owner of the bug to be Launchpad, we want the owner of the bug to be the person who pushed the button, or the person
Right,
who...
correct.
Yeah.
So-
Launchpad knows they're in language.
Right, but so then Launchpad would have to then query the BTS and do some heuristic to find out which bug, like the bug number, because it wouldn't get the bug list, wouldn't get...
You could use x-debbugs-c header to ensure that it gets a reply.
But I mean, before getting into the technical details, is someone thinking that would be a bad idea, or
I think a lot of Debian maintainers will pitch a fit about it. I don't know if that means it's a bad idea or not, but
I mean that would be the same
they're going
for
to socialize.
submit to Debian, right?
Submit to Debian is slightly different because that's about forwarding patches.
pushing the button on Launchpad before the bug.
Yeah, and also, like, submit to Debian is...
Can you speak up a little bit?
and also submit to Debian gets criticism when people don't bother to edit the template.
The big one that says edit me now.
Yeah, I've actually seen mails being sent to Debian with edit me.
Yes, I've told people off about it.
The standard of care is correspondingly lower when people are using a web button to do that versus using submit.
Yeah.
That's true.
And so that's going to result in some lower quality bug reports.
And I don't think it's actually useful to, if you have bugs without a solution, just manually filing them on Debian probably won't give you a lot. I mean, probably most of the bugs should be filed on an upstream bug tracker. So I don't think it's a good idea to file bugs to Debian when it's really upstream.
I completely disagree that most bugs are upstream. Most of the patches I file in Debian are against the packaging.
Okay, well that's not what my
I think you already have
okay.
the right guidance for that. I think George worked on that. And you think you already have guidance which actually says if it is a packaging bug, should be forwarded to Debian. If it is an upstream bug, it should be pushed upstream.
You also have to consider there is currently no way to submit a bug via web interface to the BTS, which is the position of the BTS maintainers is as a good thing for whatever reason they have. This would be basically Ubuntu creating
a workaround.
Workaround for that, which might be very poorly received by the BTS maintainers. Because they say, we have a very good reason for our opinion, and so for Ubuntu to subvert that could cause friction.
I can't really speak for the debugs maintainers, but I think you would. I'm emeritus, but I think you would probably find that objections from the debugs maintainers would be proxies for maintainers who were annoyed by the results, rather than debugs maintainers being annoyed for themselves. I think you're more likely to find Debian maintainers pissed off by quality levels changing.
So I just would say that the idea of having that submit to Debian button on Launchpad is kind of an implementation detail in the sense that I think what the goal should be is to reduce the friction for bugs that are already filed in Launchpad against a package that really should be fixed in Debian, getting those bug reports.
And even if we have it, it'll only be for certain people. We don't want, because then people say, oh, my bugs are already in Launchpad, let me click this button.
Right.
So I admit that when I actually read it a bit too quickly your mail, I think it was the equivalent of submit to Debian, which is actually only for patches. So I admit I was more thinking about that. Because if you have a patch, usually you already have some kind of higher experience in who submitted the bug, if he's the creator of the patch, or at least in the person who created the patch. So maybe I was thinking more about that, but at that point I'm not really sure that having to use submit to Debian is any kind of blocker for the person in Ubuntu doing the forwarding. That's you that should know about that. I can speak about that. I mean, I have no idea how difficult it is to use submit to Debian compared to a Launchpad bug.
It's really easy.
Okay.
It is
spawns report bug template.
Okay, so maybe it's not really worth thinking.
It strikes me
about.
that it would be quite simple to write a tool in Ubuntu DevTools that just pulls the description from the bug and makes a report bug template with that.
Could do that.
That would be fairly straightforward. That way you wouldn't.
And then it would spawn the editor and tell you that.
So, lady, you're going to take that action then?
Come on, it's really easy.
Is there also another just sort of side to this, and it's really kind of more on the Launchpad side? Is there any sort of way to make it easy to, once you've actually submitted a bug to Debian that you know is also in Launchpad, to make that association? In other words, what I typically do is just wait for that email to come back and say, oh, okay, well, here's the bug number and here's the URL, and then you got to go crazy.
Oh, so you mean having something that would automatically create the bug watch once the mail comes back?
Having a forwarded pseudo header?
Could we arrange for, so the way that it would work, I guess, would be, so if we set xdebug cc to some Launchpad address and then had a header in that mail which was basically a reflection of something that you set possibly bug, then it would be possible then it would at least be conceptually possible for Launchpad to automatically.
If I knew that like the Launchpad number that I was fixing, and I could just type that into Debian and then.
In fact, you could say xdebug cc bug number -link at bugs.launchpad.net or something. That would work.
That would be nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
It could also pull that out of your changelog. It's already reading your changelog.
Yeah.
But we would need to have some kind of suitable address that existed on the Launchpad side. I don't think it should.
We have a
probably
framework
should
to add
actually.
that. I mean, we have a mail handler. I mean, all the email, the Launchpad email interface has. You just basically add. You would write an handler that check the email address that is emailed to, and then so is this for me? Okay, yeah, that's one of my magic address, and then act on it. The one aspect there that is, I mean, it's not that's an implementation detail, but in Launchpad, so these handlers are can operate like they know if is the email authenticated or not. So how do you authenticate the email so that, well, I mean, it would be unlikely for a spammer to add that custom header to an email, but it's kind of annoying if sometimes someone decides like just to create. And the effect is actually only creating a link, so it's not going to spam anybody.
I haven't looked at it very much, but would it be worth us implementing DKIM on
It's implemented.
in debugs? No, debugs.
Oh, in debugs.
bugs.debian.org. And
You mean the outgoing part of it?
Right.
Saying-
The purpose of that is essentially to authenticate a mail that's coming from a particular server, right?
No, from a particular user.
Sorry, a particular user at a particular domain.
Yeah.
You can,
So, but it's at the domain names.
right.
I
But
don't-
we could perhaps implement that in debugs, and then you would be able to authenticate that the mail comes from debugs.
Yeah. We already had support in Debian for Launchpad.
Right. So that, well, that's what I thought.
That could be an additional layer, but to be honest, for the initial functionality, I mean, if we didn't identify the drawback of not doing any authentication is that's currently to create a bug watch, you need to be logged in as a Launchpad user through the web, which means that somebody who doesn't have a Launchpad account could create arbitrary Debian bug watch without a Launchpad account. I mean, in a way, it's kind of
That's an interesting attack vector.
they can already make arbitrary changes to the Debian BTS until we block them. So
You can already do that via the main interface to the BTS. So. Okay, so
I'm not sure it's a limitation.
It may not actually be a problem, but if authentication is a blocker, then
I mean, from an implementation level, it's not. It's more policy.
I have another small one and two big ones. So the small one was something that was started by George a long time ago, and we discussed it with Alison, I think at that talk this year, having a live list of people who are both in Debian and in Ubuntu. So I think it would be interesting to have a list of people who are in both projects, active in both projects. Like I don't know exactly how to define that yet, but let's say that looking at the changelog or uploads or this kind of stuff would be a good approximation.
Yeah, the last
I don't know how you did that. Was it by hand or did you have some script back then? You remember after DebConf?
There was a script.
After DebConf 10,
I
you.
think it was actually Nathan Handler.
Oh.
Yeah, that was that handler. Yeah, he did that for. I asked him to do that.
Having a live version of that page, I think it should be pretty easy to do and would be
like a UDD or something?
I'm not sure we have all the information about Ubuntu developers in UDD.
No, but I mean uploaders would be.
Oh, uploaders, right.
Like uploaders.
Okay, yeah, right, okay.
Yeah.
So.
But you can go by name, that's...
Yeah, I mean, say the same uploader name for the last 6 months.
John Smith. Yeah.
Plus, too, I think we should just keep encouraging people who care about both to just be on the derivatives channel and the derivatives list, right?
Right. So, and having that kind of page could be.
What's the idea behind this list? Is it just to check or for any purpose?
He has a script, but it wasn't set up to run automatically.
Yeah, I understand. I just want
to. Pulls the.
Is it just for information to know, or is there any
And
purpose?
to track growth over time.
Yeah. It's not like you're going to be hassled for sponsoring. It's not like a list of people who are willing to be given work or anything like that. It's just
No,
for
but I mean,
information. Right?
it's nice to know, oh, that guy is also
Yeah, that's
working
nice.
on that.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
I just wondered
So
what.
actually, for derivatives, for us, it would be nice to have some generic infrastructure to do that for every single derivatives. Like, but I mean, the big amount of people with joint interests is now on Debian Ubuntu, so that would be a good start. Okay.
What do we mean specifically by active in Debian?
So active in Debian could be defined as people that appear as uploaders of some packages. I think that can be, yeah, that could be a good first approximation. But I mean, if you have a tool that just takes as input a list of names, or full names, that we can easily change over time, adding people active on specific mailing lists or whatever.
Well, I think doing an upload in the last 6 months is probably more interesting than just standards
whatever.
like, Ubuntu developer.
That's
The
really easy to do
script
if you
was
need
just Debian developer and Ubuntu developer. Mainly, I think, because those are just two easy data sources that you can just pull lists from.
It's really easy to do uploads in the last 6 months as well on UDD. That's
Yeah,
2-line.
you can do anything, mind change logs or anything like that.
Anyone willing to take an action on this?
Do that. What the hell?
And okay, another one which was actually pretty big, I think, was on the list as already, which is the application review board thingy. So Ian, what do you like to would you like to start on that?
There's this thing, I'm sure everyone in the room knows about it, called the app review boards, and it's extras.ubuntu.com and developer.ubuntu.com. It's kind of being promoted as a streamlined way of getting your apps into the distribution. Sorry, getting your apps out to Ubuntu users of stable releases. And some people have criticisms of this process in that it's kind of alters the model of what we think a distribution is, and that it kind of bypasses the official, or up until now, official ways of getting packages in through upstream and then Universe and then however else they get out to users from their backports or whatever. And I just think it's a thing that we ought to discuss what we think, how we think this is going to impact the relationship.
This is the stuff that gets in the software center?
It's one of the ways of getting things in the software center, and it's kind of being promoted as an easy way of getting things in. Right, you upload to this website, and then somebody reviews your package, and then if it's good, then it gets put in this special area of the software center.
So stuff in the software center isn't necessarily a repository?
It's not a repository.
It's an A
It's in
repository.
wow.
It's different.
So it's in two different repositories. There's one that is apps that have some sort of paid component, and they're kept segregated from all the others. And then the ones that are both FLOSS licensed and free that come through that channel go into a repository called extras.ubuntu.com that acts just like main or Universe, but it's just another channel to keep them.
And the reason for having a separate channel is primarily to decouple it from the release cycle, where it's not something that's integrated into the release, to provide a mechanism that doesn't have to follow the policies that we have around
We're
it.
authenticating people who can do that in a slightly different way to the way we're authenticating them for the rest
Well,
of
they all have to go through the application review board, which reviews before it gets accepted.
There's another reason for that also, is that, I mean, as I'm not sure if it's the same thing than developer.ubuntu.com, but the idea is also for people or application developer who wants to develop an app targeting the Ubuntu desktop, they can get an application delivered to the Ubuntu desktop without having to learn anything about Debian packaging. I mean, that's the goal here. And
Developer.ubuntu.com is slightly different than
okay.
Yeah, it's kind of the gateway into the process.
But I mean, I think that is even worse than.
Okay, and there's worse.
Well, that's not that it's worse. I mean, from the point of view of raising concerns on VR, it's worse.
One more thing I wanted to
Personally, I have no problem with it, but I'm not a Debian developer, nor an Ubuntu developer, so I don't get a say here.
Right, and coming alongside this, there's also, we're starting to hear noise from certain people in the Ubuntu community that we should be rethinking what we have a lot of the applications in the archive for, whether we should have such a big archive at all, and whether we should just be shipping this core platform thing on which other people bring in their applications through this ARB process or whatever.
So
Because nobody needs all
here's
that
some
stuff.
feedback, here's a bit of a rebuttal on that. I'm an archive admin who does a lot of package removals, often because I'm the one who notices them and gets annoyed by them most frequently at the right times in the cycle. So I will do batch removals of packages, and invariably every couple of months I get at least 1 or 2 emails from users who see my name on the removal, and these are the users who have made it over that bar to figure out who to email about it, saying, I was using this package and it's gone. What do I do about it? And this is a package that it's been removed from Debian as well, so we don't have a good answer for them. But concretely, users care about having those packages available, and they would not be available to our users any other way, because we have nobody who's going to go out and package that. We don't have anybody who's
And the
we've actually
target
lost
for
the people
the
that's
target
already
for that
removed.
is extras or?
Sorry?
No.
So this is about
No, this is
the
about
universe archive.
people who are e-first.
No, I know,
Stuff
but
we
I mean,
import from
what
Debian.
I didn't get what's the solution. So where do you put these kind of packages?
I don't put them anywhere because I'm not taking on the extra load. The reason we remove them is because Ubuntu as a community has said we are not going to be able to maintain these things because they're not maintained in Debian. They've been removed from Debian, and Ubuntu is not going to pick up the slack on that realistically.
I think if I may extend that a bit, I think the implication from that is that if even the stuff that is so badly maintained that we feel the need to remove it garners complaints when we remove it, that implies that the stuff that is better maintained that we don't remove probably is used more than we think. And thus saying people don't use it, let's shove it all into extras is an incorrect position to take. Is that the logical extension of your
Yes.
Well, so before we go too far in this, I want to pause and take a perspective, and that is Lainey and I are running a session later this week that's kind of the whole perspective on how new packages get into Debian and Ubuntu and extras and sort of that mass. And then there's also another session later this week on the ARB.
Do you remember when is it? No way.
I don't. But
No way.
yeah, I can send you a link to make sure you get there. So what I'd like to make sure we focus on here is the impact on Debian from
that's why I was in response to this.
and extras, and if there is an impact, how we can minimize that and make sure that we still, that this piece, as much as we can debate how much we're going to do here, but whatever we do here, make sure it doesn't have a negative impact on Debian.
So
My take.
so is the concern here that Debian developers are concerned about not having these applications, like these third-party applications in the Debian repository?
I think the concern is that, so I see it a very good development, the fact that now, as I said in my talk today, that you now have the path of upstream first for the universe. So you essentially say to people, so let's first get your package in Debian, which I think is good for you because you get some kind of extra quality work, and it's good for us because, I mean, the packaging work benefit not only Debian, not only Ubuntu, but all the derivatives descending from there either way. So, and pushing too much, quote, in the direction of extras repositories which are not related to universe seems to go in the opposite direction. So I think that's the kind of concern. And but for me, there is also an opportunity there. So as I see it, it might be a place where you, for instance, you drive upstream people which are actually interested in learning packages in the right way, in the right direction. But I know that not all upstreams are like that. So I understand that you might have a need of having an easier, dirty and easy way to get packaged in the Ubuntu archive. For upstream which just want to stop there, I'm fine with having that package in some separate repository. Probably it's package that will never get into Debian anyhow.
Yes, this is also why we have extras.
The question is, the question is whether you are interested in considering also the opportunity of this kind of model or not. And from what I read from your position, it seemed to me that you were interested in doing that as well. So you said that there are different paths in the process, and if people who get in the process are actually potentially interested in doing proper Debian packages, they will be driven in the right direction.
We've definitely, so if you look at the ARB, part of our charter, part of our purpose is let's find the apps that look like they would be good candidates to go upstream to Debian and help mentor them on that. We actually have one PD who just joined, and I'm in the end now. So we consider that part of, we get a lot of people who don't know anything about packaging at all. And some of them aren't good candidates, but some of them really are, and I've seen even in the current submission list, there's a couple that we'll probably put them into extras first, just so it's right there in the distribution, and then over the next 3 or 4 months, mentor them in how to get that upstream to Debian.
And there have been a lot of cases in existing ARB reports where we have said, really, this actually probably be a good candidate for Debian because it'll be less work for you. For people who seem somewhat competent in their packaging style, we think that they actually have a chance of submitting Debian. Because there are lots of people who they just have no idea. They can write code well, but they just can't package for anything. And so it would be a disservice to Debian to send them over and say, there are, of course, several people who could, and then in that case, we have said, send this over to Revu, send this over to Debian, because that's a more appropriate venue for your sort of package. So I think that this is definitely an opportunity, one, to increase the amount of software for Ubuntu, but to also direct the people who are suitable to the right places.
I have 2 questions regarding that, if I may.
Sure.
First of all, when you have people who have no interest or aptitude for packaging, how do those get into extras if they're not doing the packaging? Is that something that
It's quickly auto-generated stuff, maybe. So
one
in
of the things
/opt
perhaps to
and
discuss about in the ARB session, but yeah, it's either we package it for them, but ideally it goes into package me, which is like automatic packaging. It just looks at the tarball and generates that.
And the second question is, in the case of those who you find would be better served if they did the Debian upstream first, how are we making sure that they connect with somebody on the Debian side who is actually able to receive that and help them make that actually happen, rather than going to Debian mentors and they're never going to?
We don't have an answer for that yet.
That's a question which interests me as well. So that's another part of the opportunity which I think I've mentioned on the derivatives list. It's a potential to learn from one side that there is interest in packaging something, and finding some way to mix and match that with actually people interested in packaging that application. Mm-hmm. But I don't have an answer yet
We
either.
can do some sponsoring ourselves, but I think it would be helpful if we had some contacts with people that are in the Debian community, maybe don't know, maybe not interested in working on Ubuntu, but to have sort of a group of people we know we can contact to kind of help sort of. There's sort of like a mentoring channel, right? So we can sort of start helping them along the way and then have some idea sort of what the next step is for mentoring them on and pulling them on all the way.
But I think you need something more than mentoring here, because you actually need the maintainers. I mean, so
you need a sponsorship commitment.
Yes.
Yes, which sounds like maintenance.
yeah, it's not sponsorship, it's full maintenance. Yeah.
I'll be happy to sponsor any package which is implemented with DH at compot level 9 and has a rules file of 7 lines or less.
Actually, that's really useful, because that's the kind of thing we can hand to the folks we're mentoring and say, hit this. So we are using DH in any case where they haven't already got their own. Those are the kinds of things we can specify, like do it this way and use your path.
But even that won't help you a lot if you have like a package which just bundles all kinds of libraries and stuffs itself into /opt. So then you actually need some more effort with that. So.
Well, no, I mean clearly something like that would not be appropriate to Debian in that form.
Right, exactly. That's what I'm saying. So you need someone who actually tears apart the thing and packages properly.
I mean, you have a filtering step in the ARB, right? So that's
right, but
the kind of filtering.
We specifically don't want these packages in the Ubuntu archive because they can violate all sorts of policy requirements which we would have if it would go to Debian or Ubuntu. So this is why we mandate /opt and be separated and only do certain things and not having post-ins and whatnot. So this is like a second-class packaging thing for your pencil ordering application and whatnot.
I think there's one fundamental piece, though, that we need to make clear, and that is probably going to be confusing from the Debian perspective, and that is these are developers who are maintaining their own Debian packaging. So this is not about finding someone to take on the maintainership of their package. It's just about finding someone to sponsor them long enough that they can become responsible Debian maintainers, DM, like candidates for DM.
No, actually not, because these packages are mostly done with packaging in an automatic fashion. So you actually would need to package it properly.
For going upstream are the ones who've taken an interest, and we're actually training them to take it on themselves. That's sort of the purpose of the ARB. Is these are self-maintained packages. So these are developers that are watching their own bugs, participating in the distribution of their software.
One thing
It's a different idea.
One thing I worry about is that we keep developing this developer.ubuntu.com, and we keep going down the road it's on, and then we make this extra thing so easy that doing it any other way seems like a burden.
Right, an application developer, another new package.
Yeah. So
I mean, I write code for an application.
Yeah.
It
exactly.
works. It runs.
Right.
What do you mean?
So we put all of our efforts into developing this click workflow. We don't put any and then therefore we don't put any efforts into making the Debian side of it smoother, and therefore people see going through Debian and upstream as being more burdensome as doing it any other way. So,
yeah, but for applications with 5 users, I mean, is it really worth spending the resources of a DD to?
Well, that's actually the real reason is more so with that click stuff, what is going to happen is that you're going to have runaway. You're going to have an Angry Bird application for Ubuntu, and then you'll want to have that application in Debian. But the application, and then it's more like.
Out of curiosity, how specific to Ubuntu will be there Latin packages?
Not very.
No, you could probably have something like extras.debian.org or something.
I don't think we want that. But
I would expect
also, yes.
I would expect that modulo.
Not only binary, I was also thinking about dependencies. I mean, maybe some specific versions can be different or something.
Yeah, I mean, I'd expect that modulo usual binary compatibility problems. I would expect that the source packages would build on Debian.
Because you mentioned that you want that repository to be independent of Ubuntu releases. Is that it?
So we only accept apps after the release. So right now we're only accepting applications to go onto Oneric, which was just released.
Okay.
So it's only the current already released. It's not integrated into the whole development cycle.
But it's not supposed to run also on Precise, for instance?
No, in fact, all apps are expired at the end of the 6 months, so nothing gets carried automatically to the next release. Which is kind of, I think, why some people have been talking about it as a problem, as an approach to the folks who just want to get their app in and then they disappear and it doesn't get maintained. Because in this case, if they disappear, it just falls off after 6 months and nobody ever sees it.
You should expire out of packaging.
There's such a lot of crap there.
I was going to ask how the package namespace was managed, but because would a paid app then block Debian from doing something with registration to a name that's been accepted in ALB?
It wouldn't block Debian from doing anything, but it might cause problems if we tried to sync it.
Yeah.
Although right now,
if it's a 6-month thing, then you might expire the name or something.
Right now,
we also have a restriction that you're not allowed to conflict with any name in main, like.
Right, but
this actually works out, although possibly more by luck than judgment. Because we only ever sync new packages in a new development cycle. We don't sync new packages into Oneric after it's been released. So given that new packages are only accepted into extras for a given release after it's been released, only one group of people is ever creating new package names at a time. So the worst case is that when somebody who has a package in extras comes to the next release along, they may find they have to rename it. Users may also find that upgrades don't work. That's interesting.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking all along. That's a big problem.
So they're not allowed to conflict, but it sounds like you're doing the Lanana approach of grandfathering in all existing names rather than namespacing your thing.
There is not a separate package namespace. Extras.ubuntu.com. I mean, like
extras
should
do, to be
honest.
You could just say, post-release dash or whatever, some sort of prefix.
com.ubuntu.com.
I'm still almost tempted to say, though, let's worry about this one.
When we have 100,000 applications.
Yes. I guess this is more of an ARB discussion anyway.
Yeah.
Debian doesn't care.
Right.
You said that after I said yeah.
Wait until people are filing bugs in the BTS about it.
Oh, hey, let me tell you about the duplicate bug reports I'm getting from a Ubuntu Satanic edition.
What's the next slide?
So for the problem of connecting, so I think one of the things we identified is connecting up to sponsors in Debian. Is Debian derivatives the right place to have that discussion? And
I'd be tempted to say take that to mentors first, and if you don't get a bite, then go somewhere else. As long as someone's keeping an eye on it.
It becomes very discouraging to contributors if they're passed on repeatedly, told to go here and then try there and try the next place. Especially since they're coming from Ubuntu in the first place and they're already being referred to one place. To have them be referred again is discouraging. So I don't subscribe to Debian mentors.
So that's related to the last point I want to discuss, which is the one about how to do mentoring sort of together across the two distros. Because it's great that you've been considering, pushing people to get packaged in Debian first. But I think we have a problem of critical mass of mentors. So I think we should find ways to actually grow a community of mentors, which people coming both from Debian and Ubuntu, because I understand you don't have enough mentors on the Ubuntu side. I've been told that we were actually managing on Debian mentors, but unfortunately I'm not active either on Debian mentors. But I've been told that they've changed the internal procedures recently and they've got kind of keeping up. But of course, if you add to that, you are active in mentors?
I follow the list, I'm
okay.
very active.
So, but of course, if you add to that all the people coming from Ubuntu, can break the balance. So I think we should find some ways, like they've been trying to do stuff like, okay, you get your package mentored, so in exchange, in 1 year or 6 months or whatever, you do some review yourself, or creating some kind of synergies like this.
Yeah.
So, sorry?
Pay it forward?
Yeah, for instance.
So, I was just going to say, in my own experience, I was on Debian Mentors years ago, and I unsubscribed about 4 or 5 years ago just because I found the list very noisy and very low signal.
They've been working on that quite a lot very recently.
So maybe it's time for me to revisit that myself. He's back. Just personally.
So that, I don't know what exactly to ask you, but if you can find a way to, not only to contribute to mentoring, because we are not looking for a patch, we are looking for some sustainable solution in the long run to have a mentoring community, which is a mentoring community on Debian packaging in general, and can be, that doesn't need to be Debian specific or Ubuntu specific, it can be generic. So that's an open question for me, but I think that's the way to go.
Is there currently a mentors team? I think I saw some.
There are some very active people. I'm bad at names. Yes. Who?
I can't remember that. Yeah, there are some people who...
Damon Keeper, his name is?
No, there is Paul Wise.
No, he's not DD, but he's quite active on mentors.
Yeah.
There's Jakob Wilk, I think, is quite active.
Yes.
Who?
Jakob.
So there is Ashish Laoya, which is pretty active and presented the evolution of the Debian mentors community at DevConf. Yes, there is Paul Wise, which I think is quite active. There are 2 other people, but I don't remember the names.
I think you said Jakob Wilk.
Yes, possibly, yes.
Okay.
So there are some people who are actually trying to...
Anyway, we have a session later in the week about new package workflow, in which I thought we'd talk about this kind of stuff.
And one of the, just quickly, one of the possible technical pieces to put in that is we're considering whether to merge our review into Debian mentors, maybe with some special tags or something. And that kind of helps encourage us to work as one review community, one mentor.
So I think somebody mentioned, maybe you, that there was a single feature in a review which is not available yet on the new Debian mentors. No, maybe it was not you.
Been me. I found a couple of bugs.
So that's something maybe I can take an action to discuss that with Debian mentors, with people behind Mentos DebianNet to see.
That was source browsing, was it?
I found 2 bugs in the cup. One of them was source browsing, the other one was diffs, maybe, or something.
Diffs, oh yeah, diffs between upload revisions.
Oh, incremental diffs.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe I can take an action on that, not to fix it myself, but to discuss with Ashish.
I found them both as bugs on DevExpo anyway, so
okay.
You can just
poke Hish about that.
Poke them to have a look at the bug, maybe.
2E.
Sorry, what?
Instead of I, it's 2E.
Right, yes.
Okay, so
should we look at the next thing from the last health check? Oh, closure was supposed to kick off discussion. We've now had that.
Version I actually completed the download back from DevConf. We talked for about 8 hours.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And no one's seen him since.
I got a brain dump, it's okay.
I'd like to make a comment about the last quote. So we have a patch for glib, GTK, or whatever that we need for Unity, and upstream GTK isn't having it. That makes bringing anything Unity related back into so I don't really know what to do there. I don't think Debian wants to derive too much from the upstream, but you know the patch is like well tested and stuff. So we've been shipping it for a while now.
Well, as long as it wouldn't create any problem with Debian, it's probably not so hard to get it in. So especially with the package GNOME team, now that we have stabilized on GNOME 3.2, we're actually making an effort to share the source packages and repositories between Ubuntu and Debian right now.
Okay.
So we are recently able to apply a lot of our updated Ubuntu packages to Debian SVN and upload to Debian and SIG. And
SVN.
Yeah, package GNOME uses SVN.
I feel the pain, but yeah. So, and generally, if you have harmless patches, then it's probably okay to apply it. Probably not the weird Ayatana Scrollbar one. So this is a hack that I don't want to see anywhere else. So, but this is probably not the patch you are talking about.
Yeah, I'm talking about the big one in GTK. The other ones, you know, you can say if you don't want the scroll bar, don't take them.
Yeah.
But the GTK ones.
The only big one is the app menu one.
Is the what?
App menu one. The application menu. Which is supported, but apart from that, we don't need the back one anymore. So
I actually have a question more generally to this. Is there a lot of actual demand from the Debian developers to get Unity and Ayatana and indicator stuff packaged for Debian, or was that just something which you came up with?
So there was. It was on the whiteboard for the previous session 6 months ago, where Absan Sarandish, whose real name is Adnan,
and he's on IRC.
Wanted to package it for Debian. So at least as much demand that somebody wanted to package it in Debian.
There's him and Raphael Herzog, I think, was interested as well.
Okay. So not recently, but in the past, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think it's an important point from architectural point of view, in the sense that it would be nice to have this kind of stuff in Debian as well, because otherwise it seems to be a difference that Ubuntu wants to keep, and I don't think it's the case, but we need to figure out how to close the gap there.
Or for example,
I think it would be also interesting on our point of view, upstream, downstream, because starting to have mixed upstream, downstream relationship among Ubuntu and Debian, I think would be really good.
Also, for example, with my Debian head on, I'd like to see like Unity in Debian. But I wouldn't like to see the Ayatana Scrollbars in Debian, for example. It's just my purely personal point of view. So, well, let's just take, an example. There are packages which I would like to see.
Okay,
and packages which
but
I
that's a
would like
question
to
of
see.
defaults. I mean, one thing is having the thing in Debian, one thing is deciding what is the default. And then I don't know exactly if the Ayatana thing is modular enough to be switched on and off.
It is.
Okay. So then the question would be, in the default installation of Debian, what do you get? But that's a problem already that we deal with the release team and with the desktop teams. And
that's what I'm saying is, so should we perhaps decide this on a case-by-case basis, or just say the goal is that we have all the packages that we have in Ubuntu also in Debian?
For me, the first goal would be seeing an interest on the Ubuntu side in having the same packages in Debian as well, as a sort of interest in getting work which is originating in Ubuntu, reach out to other venues via Debian.
Well, I guess at least for the packages that are already in Debian right now, we can make this probably a little bit easier. So just recently I was updating the package which is in Debian now with package Ayatana or Ayatana packages or something. And I couldn't actually go and update it in Debian. I had to update it in Ubuntu, reintroducing a delta, which is a bit pointless.
And why, why you couldn't do that in Debian directly?
Well, because I'm not an official Debian maintainer for package or Ayatana packages in Debian.
Okay.
So I probably should just go and ask them to add myself, but so just what I did with GNOME. But so my question was actually more aiming towards packages which are not yet in Debian. So like all the indicator bits, there's been a lot of dispute with GNOME upstream, for example, and I'm fairly sure that there is at least a couple of Debian developers who say this is not the right technical approach. We don't want this.
You don't have to use
this. This is what
yes,
what I've been too concerned about.
We have a lot of things in the archive which is essentially about choice. So as long as it's something optional, I mean,
well, it's not really, because you have to patch like 50 packages to actually use those.
Yeah, that's.
But the ones that, a lot of the ones I use those have a fallback, so they won't break it normally.
Yeah, that's right.
The library
It's
itself
not
has a
patches to
fallback.
This is kind of the reason that Ubiquity isn't in Debian, because getting it in involves patching DI in several intrusive ways that we haven't managed to unpick yet. Because it's built on DI and it keeps in sync with the source. So so in order to get that into place, you have to disentangle all of those.
So it would be already interesting to actually do a sort of review of this kind of stuff which is not in Debian and see if all of that has this kind of problem. So I can see how getting this kind of stuff in Debian is problematic, but it would be interesting to know whether it is all the stuff which is in Ubuntu not Debian is due to that reason.
I'm sure it's not all.
Indeed.
There would be some.
Well, at least for the indicator bit, so I would not dare to put indicator patches into Debian packages, even if I can, I guess, play a part of package GNOME, because I wouldn't be sure that like the majority of Debian would actually appreciate this. So it could be seen as that we are just dumping our stuff into Debian. So because I'm also an Ubuntu developer, I have some bias there, so I couldn't.
I think the correct approach here is anything we do in Ubuntu, we should at least have the conversation with Debian about whether Debian wants it as well. Sometimes the answer may be no, but we shouldn't prejudge it one way or the other. We should not assume that our stuff should be pushed to Debian, and we also should not assume that
That's right. But I mean, if you say like ask Debian, then whom do you ask?
You ask your co-maintainers.
And
for example,
if you don't have one yet, that will be the point where you create
and you ask Seth.
And if there is a problem, I resort it to the technical committee.
So actually, the Unity case is rather easy because it's just like 2 or 3 packages which are rather separate from all the others. But like indicators is a concept. It's not a package. In fact, it's like lots of packages.
Okay, so let's start with the easy one, and then when we get to the difficult one, we talk.
Yeah. But those are actually the more interesting ones, because these are the ones which create permanent deltas. And also are an interesting question about, like, do we want these additional features into Debian or not? Because having a separate package or an extra package like Unity, this is like...
I think the first goal would be documenting all this. For instance, if there is a specific reason why app indicator or whatever cannot be in Debian, how about having an ITP which is blocked by this reason, say no, we cannot have it in Debian for this reason. That way we will avoid, running in circles about and having some kind of food about this is not in Debian because they don't want to. So documenting this kind of stuff in some way would be quite useful, I think.
So for this case, I wouldn't be sure whom to ask. So maybe on the Debian package GNOME list or something, for instance.
That would be a good start.
Unity is not just 3 packages.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, like, so the indicators requires patching the actual application package, whereas Unity is, like, on a very abstract level, it's just another package. Sorry?
The service compese has a lot of patches.
Right.
Yeah, but Sam told me those patches are mostly gone, and I'm just
I'm trying to push it for this for a year now.
I assume it's not ever realistic to have Debian as upstream for a lot of those packages, that Debian's always going to be lagging behind Ubuntu on them.
Yeah, this is why I'm saying that we should probably just join the IATANA packages team in Debian and just do the updates right there. Otherwise, you will always do these 2 updates twice.
Because there are now people.
Pointless.
There are now people in Ubuntu who seem to think that Ubuntu should be upstream of Debian for some packages, and we have absolutely no workflow for that. It's a mess.
Yeah, that's right.
There's some weird packages too, like Software Center, which is becoming more and more Ubuntu specific, which is in Debian too, but the Software Center in Debian is kind of ancient at the moment.
Update Manager also in Debian is like 5 years.
Yeah, Weber as well.
But I mean, that's the part where we say being a good upstream, right? So it should be somehow split what it is Ubuntu specific and what is not, and make it easy to have it used by other distros as well. I mean, doing that kind of job would not make it easy to use it only on Debian, but also on other distribution. The question is whether how much you value this kind of work.
I guess one of my questions is, for the things that originate out of Ubuntu, how is that different from any other upstream?
I think the difference is the correlation among Canonical as an upstream and Ubuntu as a distribution.
Yeah.
Because a random upstream would care about having their software in how many distributions as possible, while in Canonical and Ubuntu you can make a point that there might be at some time interest in having in Ubuntu, and that's it. Maybe because it's easier, or maybe due to a specific strategic decision.
Kind of.
So I cannot judge that, but that's the main difference.
Right, so it's like, I don't want to do double work. I don't think anyone's saying, ooh, we have Unity and Debian, doesn't, you know?
Yes, there was some.
Yeah.
There's also people who have upload rights in Ubuntu, and they can upload their thing to Ubuntu, or they could go to Debian where they don't have upload rights, and that's a lot more work.
Yeah.
And if you want to sync it, you've got to wait 12 hours for Launchpad to pick it up before you can sync it.
So you got a point there, but what contrasts that tension in regular upstream is that they have the interest in having their software also elsewhere.
Right.
So I wonder whether you people have the interest of having canonical software also in other distributions. I think that would be quite a turning point in the culture of.
There are some cases where we do, and there are some cases where, in all honesty, we really don't very much. But
Yes, we would very much like Upstart to be in other distributions.
Sorry?
Yes, we would very much like Upstart to be in other distributions.
Upstart is a case of
Upstart, and then we can go from there.
I think is a case
The
of
key there is just acting like any other upstream, I think, is making regular releases in the way you would expect an upstream to do a release, and then get that packaging happening and going through the whole process. If that's what you really want to do, you have to act.
Well, absolutely. Upstart is currently blocked in Debian due to some distribution-specific requirements around non-Linux support. Yes, but we have to make sure that the rest of the system doesn't fall apart because everybody is chasing the new Upstart thing and losing compatibility for systems that can't run Upstart. It's a very Debian-specific problem, which I'm working on solving. But that's an example of a package where Debian is currently way behind Ubuntu in terms of upstream versions because there's no point in pushing it in Debian because nobody can actually use it. And I'm deliberately not making it more appealing for use because I don't want to, compromise the integrity of the PERD and K3BSD ports.
Okay, but it's also quite a specific case. I mean, Software Center is a way more interesting example because that's very generic as a.
But it's not that generic actually, because like in the recent.
No, I mean in theory, and then it's specialized to a lot of launch.
In the last like 2 cycles or so, we actually heavily optimized it for like extras Ubuntu.com, paid applications and whatnot. So it's becoming more and more the specific tool in that regard. So.
I mean, if you will find an upstream of some software you want in Ubuntu that compile only with a specific version of a library or with a very the custom patched third-party library, you will complain about that, right? So it's not.
I'm not saying it's necessarily a good thing. It's just that it
no, I can see the reason.
We are way over on time, by the way. There's nothing after.
And also, like the sub-percentage is kind of a meta level because usually you want packages, and this is the thing that gets you packages. And so,
Hey, I have one more small question. We won't take it long. Does anyone know if there's a specific case of licensing, the Ubuntu font license? Does anyone have any works going on with that?
Paul Schreiber was trying to get this Debian, but
no. You have seen the judgment of.
I've seen that's what I mean. I've seen the FTP master's judgments, and I want to know if there's any work going on the Ubuntu side too. What was the
Did you see the huge discussion on Debian development?
I didn't pay any attention.
It's not the
you're saying he's saying faster than the second.
I think it's based on this open font license. It has some naming requirements.
so he better
Also, the font has this naming position was decided. You can say that you must rename it.
Why that's, I mean, LaTeX has similar results, right? And Perl has sorry?
That's fine.
Perl, for example, the Perl license requires that if you modify Perl and ship it, you get a file in Perl. So it's the restriction on the naming scheme is seen as a constraint.
Well, it was just really care what no user is ever going to see it.
I know, I think it's the fact that I just walked through the lines.
So the problem is not that you have to rename it, it's that you have to rename it in a specific way.
Now I know this format so it's able to function.
I mean, I thought
See you around, guys. See you later.
I'm sure the specific.
Actually, I'm interested in going to Los Angeles. I have a number of friends born there. But anyway, I'm not
So far, the ones that I'm tagging are the ones
from the back. Black on top of the room, or top of dark purple.
a fair number of packages, but not
Kind of slide we had upspace, Debian, and then Weaver. And Debian was on the room, and black text, and then, yeah. And then there was dark purple with black. I had somebody with a visual entity showing you what the big thing is. I think just going for pastels if you're going for black.
No, aptitude itself needs fixes to support the library package. Library the red one was showing like maroon, and the purple was showing like that eggplant, that aubergine, and if you put black on top of aubergine, it kind of just turns into dark. The slide that had the graph attaches the text.
There's positive development. I think that's the right way.
Yeah.
Show what it is.